This story is very meaningful. Everyone should hear it. Listen to Brian tell the story. I'm Hazel. I used to work in finance, managing one of the most successful hedge funds on the street. My life was fast-paced, high pressure, and it came with a paycheck that made everything seem worthwhile. But that life, it wasn't everything. When my son Matt was born, I realized I was missing out on something far more important than all the money in the world: time with my family. So I walked away from it all. I became a stay-at-home mom. And people, they don't get it. They judge me. And now, as Matt prepares to attend Harvard, I'm about to face the harsh reality that no matter what I did or why I did it, some people will never understand the choices I made. Some will criticize, others will gossip, and I'll be forced to prove that my life was a decision I made with purpose. But there's a deeper question burning inside me. Was it the right decision? And what happens when the life I've built comes under fire? You're probably wondering, what happened to make me so sure about leaving everything behind? And more importantly, what happens when everything I've chosen to be comes into question? I never thought I would be here, standing in this fancy, overpriced house at a party, surrounded by women who looked like they stepped off the pages of a magazine. I wasn't one of them. I was the outlier, the stay-at-home mom with no designer clothes or fancy job title. But that's okay. I made my choice. I chose family over a high-powered career. But right now, standing here with my glass of wine in hand, it felt like that choice was a mistake. You see, when I first became a mother, I had this picture-perfect vision of what our life would be like. I'd raise my son, Matt, with the same love and attention I'd always dreamed of. No rushing off to work, no missed birthdays, no letting someone else raise my child. But I wasn't prepared for the judgment. "I can't believe you're a stay-at-home mom," Lori said, eyeing me with that thin, mocking smile. "How do you manage all day? Don't you get bored? I mean, shopping for designer bags is clearly out of the question, right?" The laughter that followed made my cheeks burn. Lori had that kind of presence, the kind that made everyone feel small without lifting a finger. "I guess it's just different for everyone," I said, trying to smile, but it was thin, pathetic, really. "Oh, please," she continued. "I couldn't imagine staying at home all day. What would I even do? Shop for clothes, maybe?" She laughed again. "I mean, you can't possibly have much disposable income living off a single paycheck. Must be a nightmare, huh?" I felt the sting. I wasn't one to back down, but right now I had to fight back tears. But then my son, Matt, came running into the room excited, like he always was when he wasn't at school. "Mom, guess what? I made the swim team." He beamed with pride, his eyes sparkling with excitement. "Wow, that's amazing," I cheered, wrapping my arms around him. In that moment, I forgot about everything, the mocking tone of the women, the snide remarks. But Lori, of course, had to chime in. "Wow, so impressive. I'm sure you're very proud of him. I wonder, though, if he's learning what it takes to be successful from you or from someone else. I mean, does he even see you working hard?" I wanted to snap back, tell her she didn't understand a thing. What she didn't get was that my hard work wasn't measured in hours spent at an office. It was in the laughter at the dinner table, the hugs I gave when Matt needed comfort, the quiet moments where I helped him with his homework. But I didn't say any of that. Instead, I just nodded. "Matt's a good kid. I'm proud of him." I could feel their eyes on me as I turned away to give Matt a hug. But then my thoughts were interrupted. "So how is it, really?" Lori's voice was softer now, but it was a tone I knew well. The kind of tone used to tear people down with kindness. "How does it feel to stay home, Hazel? To spend your days doing, well, nothing really, I suppose?" The question hung in the air, heavy. I knew what I had to say. "Lori, I didn't choose this life to make you or anyone else feel comfortable. I chose it because I love my family. I love raising my son. And no, it's not easy, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Not for your Gucci bag, not for your career. This is my life, and I'm proud of it." I said it with conviction, surprising myself. For a moment, I stood tall, and it felt good. It felt empowering to finally say what I had always thought, but never voiced out loud. But the smirk on Lori's face never wavered. "Right, sure, but imagine what your life could be like if you had a bit of ambition, if you worked like the rest of us." I could feel my chest tightening, but instead of walking away, I stayed. I wasn't going to let her win. But of course, the conversation shifted. It always did. Someone mentioned their latest luxury purchase, And I tried to tune it out, but it was impossible not to feel out of place. They were talking about money I didn't have, trips I would never afford. I excused myself to the bathroom, needing a break. As I stood at the sink, looking at my reflection in the mirror, I couldn't help but wonder, what had happened to me? I used to be the ambitious, driven woman I once imagined myself to be. I had given it all up to be with my family, to be with Matt and George, and yet here I was, questioning myself. A knock on the door broke my thoughts. Hazel? It was Sarah, one of the few who wasn't as judgmental as the others. Yeah, I just wanted to say something, she said softly. Don't let them get to you. They don't understand the sacrifices you make. We all have different priorities in life. And honestly, Matt is lucky to have a mother like you. I blinked back the tears threatening to fall, grateful for Sarah's words. When I returned to the party, I found myself more at peace. Even if the other women didn't understand, I knew that my family was my success. No matter how hard they tried to belittle me, I had something they didn't, the unconditional love of my son, the pride of knowing I was doing what was right for him. At home later that night, I sat down at the dinner table, Matt chattering away about school and swimming, his face full of joy. I felt a surge of love for him, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel out of place. As I tucked him into bed that night, he looked up at me and asked, Mom, when can we go on that trip to Hawaii you promised? I smiled, brushing his hair from his forehead. Soon, sweetie, I promise. The next morning, George and I sat down to have our usual coffee. The conversation started as it always did, but today felt different. Honey, George started, I've been thinking, maybe it's time for you to get back into the workforce. Not because you need to, but because I think it might make you feel more fulfilled. I want you to do something for yourself, for your own happiness. I looked at him, surprised but moved by his words. I had been so focused on doing what was best for everyone else that I'd forgotten to think about my own happiness. I realized that maybe it was time to step outside my comfort zone and find a balance, a way to contribute more to our family, not just financially, but emotionally and with purpose. Maybe I could be the ambitious woman I had once dreamed of being, but for now I had the family I loved, and that was enough. Maybe the balance wasn't about having it all. It was about knowing when to give and when to take. As I sat there looking across the table at my family, I realized that my life had already been incredibly rich. And in the end, that was all that mattered. The next few weeks after that evening felt like a new chapter of my life. I began to look at my choices from a different perspective, not as a series of sacrifices, but as intentional steps I had taken to build a meaningful life for my family. There were moments when the old doubts crept in, but now I had a clearer sense of my worth, not tied to what I wore or how much money I brought home, but to the love and care I gave to my family. One Friday evening, I was at home with Matt, reading through his homework. George was out on another late-night work trip, a routine that used to bother me, but now I almost welcomed the quiet time with Matt. We were sitting on the couch, the house smelling of the leftover dinner I had made, when the doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. Matt looked at me a little confused, but I gestured for him to stay put as I walked to the door. It was Sarah. Hi, Hazel. Sorry to just show up like this, Sarah said, a little hesitant. She always had that approachable smile, but tonight she seemed like she had something on her mind. Sarah, what's going on? I asked, suddenly feeling a bit concerned. Well, it's about the group, she trailed off, looking down at the floor for a second before meeting my gaze. I think you need to know something. I let out a small sigh. What's going on now? More judgment about my life choices? No, she said quickly. Nothing like that. It's just Lori and the others, they're starting to gossip about you more. They're not just talking about your bag anymore. They're talking about your life, how you've stayed home all these years, how you made it work without a fancy career or fancy trips. They're calling you out, Hazel. It's starting to get ugly. My heart sank. The last thing I wanted was for Matt to hear this kind of talk, for anyone to make him feel like his mother's choices weren't enough. Do they think I care about their opinions? It's not about caring. It's about them not understanding. And I can see how much it's getting to you, Sarah said softly. But Hazel, I think it's time you let them see the real you. They can talk all they want, but they don't know the whole story. I stared at her, trying to understand. They don't know about Matt's acceptance into Harvard, do they? She continued, her voice firm now. They don't know about the successful hedge fund you used to run, how you made more money than they ever will. They don't know that you chose to leave that world behind to focus on your family, to give your son the future you never had growing up. Matt's been accepted to Harvard, I said in disbelief. The pride I had in him, in his hard work, surged through me like a tidal wave. Well, yes, Sarah said, smiling. And I think it's time you let everyone know what you've achieved, not to prove anything, but to show them what really matters, what real success looks like. I nodded slowly. Sarah was right. It wasn't about bragging or showing off. It was about giving Matt the best life I could, even if that meant sacrificing a high-powered career. As the days passed, I thought about Sarah's words. I didn't want to fight fire with fire, but I wasn't going to let them get away with belittling the life I chose. So the next time I was at a gathering with Lori and the others, I decided it was time to take a stand. The usual conversation started. The talk about who was wearing what and how successful everyone's husbands were. I could feel the tension in the air before I even spoke. Lori, Wayne, I said calmly, you know, it's easy to judge someone when you don't know their full story, but I want you to know that I've worked hard in my life. I used to run a hedge fund, a successful one at that. I made more money than most people could ever dream of. But I made a choice, Lori. I chose my family over wealth. And that choice? It made me the proudest I've ever been. I could see Lori's face fall as she processed my words. The silence that followed felt heavy, but I wasn't done. My son is going to Harvard. He got there not because I pushed him, but because he's driven. Because I taught him the value of hard work, dedication, and love. He got there because I was there every step of the way, just like any other mother who loves her child. I stood there waiting for someone to speak, but no one did. It was as if they were all struck by the weight of what I'd said, the realization that not all success looks the same. Finally, Lori broke the silence. Well, I didn't know any of that, Hazel. I guess I was wrong. I just wanted you to know that I wasn't trying to attack you. I thought you were just wasting your time. I nodded. That's fine. I didn't expect you to understand, but now I hope you do. From that moment forward, the gossiping seemed to stop. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone else. My choice to be a stay-at-home mom, to dedicate my time to my family, had been the right one for me. A week later, I received a call from Matt's school. They wanted to interview me about the incredible journey my family had taken. They were interested in writing an article about how our family's dedication and hard work paid off, how our love and sacrifices helped Matt achieve his dreams. When I told Matt, he smiled at me, his eyes full of gratitude. I'm really proud of you, Mom, he said. And in that moment, everything felt right. This was my success. This was my victory. Not the accolades or the wealth I had once chased, but the life I had built with my family, the one that mattered most. As I reflected on all that had happened, I realized that no one else's opinion mattered. Lori's or anyone else's. I knew what I had, and that was enough. Hazel's journey is one of rediscovery and strength. She chose a path that wasn't easy, but it was one that aligned with her values and her love for her family. Do you agree with Hazel's decision to stay at home and dedicate her life to raising her son? Or do you think she should have pursued a career? Let us know your thoughts and experiences in the comments below.